For this life I live, I want to be celebrated. Don't wanna waste my days, I want to spend them on enjoyment.
First time I'm going live on 2 different platforms at the same time, and I don't like this setup. I feel like this is not the right angle I want. I don't know what I'm doing here. This is live with Sara. Okay, we've got Facebook down here, and we've got right size perspective. I figured, TJ wants to be in and on it too. Hey, Troy. And so the lesson today, like I said, was taking a little bit more time to set up. I kind of pushed it. I definitely pushed it. So, and then also knowing like what angle I want to be at, and I also need another tripod that is the same angle, because I've got one that's like really high. I don't know if y'all can see this, but this is my work. It's like that one. But that's not a really great angle. So, anyways, we're just gonna make it work. We're gonna make it work. We're not gonna think too much about it. So, and then I also have to figure out how to pay attention to 2 things at once. This is gonna be interesting. But no, welcome. It's Friday. This is the 3rd time I think I've gone live on Friday. And it's just been a learning experience. I need to make sure I had it on my schedule. I need to make sure I showed up, and I need to make sure I didn't mess up completely that bad. So, but because the title of the live that I posted was, this is either going to be a monologue or a conversation. And so it's starting off as more of a monologue, but I'm actually pretty used to that. I, as a therapist, mental health and addictions therapist, I've been doing that work since 2014, I would say. I'm really used to talking to myself. Not a lot of people really know what to say when you start to challenge them as a, as a therapist and as a client. So I'm kind of used to talking to myself. So that's why I'm like, I can do both. I just really am bothered by this whole, anyway, I'm not gonna look at it. So the monologue really is going to be just based off of a topic that honestly, it's kind of part of what I'm doing in my journey and in my week. So, because a lot of my MO is I post on my stories. They're mostly for my own accountability, to show up. And then as the years have gone by, I've collected a little bit of a community who apparently I inspire them. And so it's really been very motivational for me to consider that I'm now doing this not just for myself. I'm now doing this for the people who need someone to kind of lead them and to guide them into transformation. So, I am in transparency because my commitment wasn't necessarily about, it was to my health at first and foremost, but it wasn't about putting myself out there and getting a whole bunch of likes. It was more of accountability. If you go to Instagram, on Instagram, right size perspective, this on IG, that, and you scroll down all the way to the bottom, because I have not done away with any of my beginning posts or anything. You will find a post from October of 2018. It's a little cringy for me anyway. And I posted that on Right Size Perspective. At the time, it was not called Right Size Perspective. It was called Amazon Perspective. And it was completely a private profile. I did not want to really put myself out there because I was afraid of not being consistent. I watched all of these, social media people and put themselves out there, because first of all, that's hard to do. Just to submit yourself to the scrutiny of the public eye. Whoa. And then, I watched their journeys as motivation for my own journey at one point, and I saw them and I could see where they were faltering. Like, it's tiring to show up for someone, not only yourself, but to show up for someone else. And then, you know, if you're ever met with anything negative, that's a blow. That is a blow to the ego. And that will take the wind out of anyone's sails. I don't care who you are. I mean, it still takes the wind out of my sails sometimes when I'm not necessarily met with exactly what I want in terms of feedback. So anyways, my rambling was to really just say that my Instagram journey has been, it's just been so eye-opening, to the point where I was like, all right, I feel like I'm at the point where I have enough of my own program, my own recovery, because my program, when I say my program, it's about codependency recovery with our relationship with food. And I haven't ever really put that out there just because I think a lot of people think I was like, oh, she's in to lose weight. Actually, I wasn't. It was for that. I don't actually say that I lost weight. I say that I release weight, because when you're recovering from a codependent dynamic, whether you were raised in a household that has just a lot of unhealthy codependency dynamics, that is at the crux of any addiction. So what I really did was I took the knowledge of, you know, all the people that I talk to every day, my clients, their addictions, usually with a substance, alcohol, opiates. I've worked with a lot of other cannabis dependents. Dependents, I'm a little old school. It is cannabis use disorder, alcohol use disorder, opiates, benzos. You know, I've worked with so many people who've struggled with substance addictions that I didn't really realize. Like, I was not turning it back on myself. I was like, yo, why do I relate to this so much? And that was because it was my own, like, just overall codependency, but with food. And food addiction is one of the, not the most underestimated addiction, because no one really sees addiction, one, as something that would really plague them individually. Denial is a bitch, I'm just gonna say. No one likes to really be like, oh, am I addicted to something? But we all are. Because you know what? Codependency, which is what leads to addiction of something that's outside of ourselves, something, our meaning there's another thing that we depend on that is more important or prioritized outside of our own existence. Food is literally the definition of what we can become codependent on. And then you fold into the mix a substance, sugar and flour and dopamine and all of the fun, like, you know, neurochemicals that get released when you eat that donut, when you drink that coffee, when you drink alcohol. It's the same areas of the brain that get light up. It's the same responses, the same chemicals that get released in your body that make us want to grasp on even more to what we're doing. So that's just a little background on as to what and why this has happened. TJ, that is TJ. So so for Facebook, that's TJ. He is, he's part of the crew. I call us the crew just because I'm a single female. I work a lot because I help other people. I'm in the helping healthcare industry, and I'm a cat person. That's just who I am. I find myself quite entertained with the feline variety. They're super interesting. The other ones just sleep. Anyway, so a little bit more about me. What else do we need to know about Sara? Hey Omar, thanks for staying in. I think Troy, you're still here too. I don't really know. I don't know how to tell. I'm learning this whole live thing. I'm hoping I'll get better over time. So what you need to know about me though, so I'm originally from New Hampshire. So for my non-US people, that is the northeast part of the United States. It's about an hour north of Boston. So why I don't sound like I'm from Boston is because I have spent the last 15 years 2007, I moved to North Carolina, which is the southeast part of the United States. And that has been where the majority of my my professional life has been and my adult life has been. So I don't have an accent as much anymore, but I will say most people from the South know I'm not from the South, and most people from the North know. They're like, oh my gosh, you're from the South? Where are you from? It takes a couple of days for the accent to get washed away a little bit more. So what else? So yeah, I think my northern roots definitely have and can speak to a lot of the determination and the mindset that I've had to develop. I would say, what else is important to know about me? Intention. I think that is going to be, because that's going to kind of fold into what I want to just talk about today. If no one ends up having any questions about my process, then I have to be prepared to speak on what I've done. Oh, that's so weird. I just saw myself join and I was like, who? Why is Perspective Counseling joining? Because it's Rexy. Hey, Rexy. And so intention. Why is intention important to me? So little backstory. When I was in grad school, I was in grad school for clinical social work and addiction, substance use disorders, counseling. My stepmom, as a graduation gift, gave me this journal. I don't know if it's backwards for y'all, but it says live every day with intention. I graduated in 2014 and she gave me this journal and it sat there. I think I wrote in it, if you can see, it's kind of like beat up a little bit. Here's her little note to me at the beginning. That was written in 2014, but I didn't start writing in it until 2017. And that's because I was very wrapped up with my career and I didn't know how to juggle. I didn't know how to do it all. And intention became very important to me because as those 3 years between when I graduated and when I was, I started really practicing what I preach is really how I would define what I've done. Intention became that was like intention. Like, how do I make sense of intention? Like, oh, I intended to do this and I intend to do that. But it's usually reactive in how we view it and not proactive and being like, okay, almost kind of like a game of chess, right? Like chess, you need to know, you have to be intentional about your moves and knowing what moves can be made during the game. And you don't have enough time to kind of be reflective about the intention unless you just made a wrong move because you lost the game at that point. So I realized intention was very important and I started using it a lot more within, my clients or with my clients and, what I was telling them. And then it just kind of all started kind of fitting together. When you start leading with intention, you start becoming a little bit more aware of like, what can you be intentional about? And then you also can look at like, what have you been intentional about that you weren't paying attention to? So I say that to say I'm going to talk a little bit about the intention that I didn't realize that I had up until the point where I started using intention and being intentional about my journey. And that is, or can be depicted through my vision board. So, I'm gonna back up here a little bit, so hopefully this will be easier. I want to start with this. So, this was actually a grad school project for grad school. But as you're ending any kind of educational program, you're usually asked to do projects. And I had always been a little bit of a creative, but I didn't really know how to, really harness it. I didn't know how to do it with intention. I wasn't an artist. I didn't identify as an artist, but I did have this like creative outlet. Like I liked to do crafts and I liked to I think crafts was it, actually. It was just like some minor painting, something that I could really kind of not do too much with. But this project that we were asked to do was about, taking our professional trajectory, and to be intentional about it, what our interests were, how we were going to take what we learned in school and apply it, and then also what we wanted it to become. And at the time, I did not realize that it was a vision board until, so this was done in 2014. I didn't start my journey until 2017. So I'd say by maybe, honestly, it probably wasn't until COVID, because this was in my house and I just didn't look at it. So I'd say maybe it almost took me about 3 years to realize that this project was a vision board. So it's kind of big, but like I said, it was kind of a where you came from, what you want to do, and where you're going project. And then I was like, oh, I made a vision board, so why don't I use it as a vision board? So here is a little bit of a vision for it. I'm gonna move my heater back a little bit. That's the only reason I have no sleeves on, is because there's a heater, a space heater. But so y'all can see it a little bit more. I don't know if you can see it like that. I guess I should probably stand up. So it is a trifold. It's a collage. It's pretty big. But it's, so if y'all can see it, if I hold it maybe, it's an infinity symbol. And that is really to represent lifelong learning. I knew that going into the healthcare profession, lifelong learning is mandatory. Especially as a therapist, I have 2 licenses that I'm credentialed within the state that I'm in. I had to do continuing education to maintain those licenses. So yeah, learning had to be something that I committed to, or else I couldn't get paid. Can't get paid. And let me just say, getting paid is crucial. You gotta be able to make money. We all know how to do that, but we don't know how to keep money, me included. So, this ultimately became my vision board. So I'm not gonna go over the whole thing, because I did that already, and I recorded it, and it was it's almost a 30-minute video, so I'll post that another time. But I really want, what I noticed last night when I was thinking about, who do I got coming in? Hey guys! What I got here? Kevin is, it's John Hayden. That name, I feel like rings a bell, but I'm a face and name, so sorry. I will look you up after, just to make sure that I know who you are. But thank you guys for coming. I should probably wave. I'm gonna wave to y'all like this and not on the thing, because I'm doing the most. I'm already doing the most. I don't multitask a whole lot. So, but what I was realizing last night, because I kind of was thinking, okay, if I'm going live tomorrow, what is it that I really need to kind of speak on? And I like to do something more in the moment, and applicable to what I'm going through right now. And so the vision board is what I'm doing right now, because I'm at that point in my journey, you guys, where I realized I accomplished all of my goals on this vision board. Or I also want to say I experienced a lot of the things that are on this vision board too. I accomplished some, I experienced a lot, because like I said, when I made this, I didn't realize that this was a vision board. I did it as a project. There's a paper that goes with it. And I didn't do it with intention. And so when I realize now the title of this live should have been Doing Something with Intention, but it is really more about how we can use just our past patterns of what we've gone through and what we have done with intention for how we move forward with intention. Good morning, Miss Zanbar. How are you this morning? Do I have anything else? I'm trying to keep an eye on my attention span is returning. It's getting better. But no, so bringing intention into how I'm living now, I realized I'm about to accomplish my last goal, which I talked about in last week's live, and how numbers shouldn't be defining who you are because they've never really made sense to me. So my only numbers goal that I have ever had in this whole 4 to 5 year journey, and I'll explain that another time, but overall it's been 5 years, has been to see what it's like to be under 200 pounds in my adult life. So as of right now, actually I have not weighed myself in like a week, so I probably need to consider doing that. But last time I think I was like 207. I'm 6 feet tall, so that's also another reason. I'm like, most people can never guess my weight. I always had like this weird joke about it. Because I'm 6 feet tall, I'm just a large person, and now I got muscles to make sure that I'm a number. I'm not a number. I'm a person. But the vision board that I had, this vision board had nothing to do with releasing myself from weight. It had nothing to do. It had everything to do with retraining my brain and whether happiness was actually attainable. Wrote this 2014. I told my own future. I swear, y'all, I'm in a spiritual part of my life right now. Not going like so, full woo-woo. But tell me how I did this in 2014 and I now just realized that I was doing this all along. There's no coincidences. We do things as human beings with intention. We may not like the outcome, which is why we don't claim we do things with intention. But when we think about them and we're actually intentional about how, like, this project was intentional for school, wasn't intentional for my journey, but it ultimately resulted in me following this. I retrained my brain. What else does it say? One thing we all have in common is we're all different. So that is a huge part of my program, is trying to figure out why right size perspective is what I call the program, is because it's not my size that is the leading factor of, I'm sorry, hold on, I said that backwards. Size comes in all different shapes. We all come in different shapes and sizes, and we are all going to be different. We all have different needs. We all have different bodies, so everybody's going to be different. It's a huge part of my program. 55% of the message we send to others is with our face. Totally me. Listen more, say less. Still, that actually should probably go on the next vision board. Here's a good one. We need connection. We can't pretend we can handle it all by ourselves. Now, this one I'll talk about in another live, because just recently, I did this on my own and I didn't tell anyone that I was doing it because, as I said at the beginning of the live, I was fearful that I was not going to be consistent, and I was fearful that I was not going to continuously show up for the expectations of what being an influencer on social media was going to be. That's just where I started. I proved myself wrong over the years, but there's different types of consistency. There's different, there are just different, it's going to look different. And I've shown up consistently, but I didn't necessarily show up in the same ways consistently. I just did things differently. But we ultimately can't all do this by ourselves. And we're not doing it by ourselves because we frequently have other people around us and they give us perspective whether we like it or not. And we operate throughout the world. We're not alone. So whether we're disconnected, now that is an issue. Disconnection is a very big issue these days. And that is ultimately, I think, probably my next mission, is to bring people together with this story and to to realize the connection that we do have with each other, and how we can be intentional about that connection, how we can maximize that without having to feel like it's so much, that we have so much to feel like we are responsible for when it comes to taking care of other human beings. I want to teach people how to manage that, because as a healthcare provider, you're taught that burnout is going to happen, which is, I'm grateful that we did get taught that, but I also don't feel like they ever really clarified, they never really clarified what to do about it, other than to don't be burnout, because that's poor practice. Kevin, you said time to throw it away and make another one. Exactly. So that is part of why I'm talking about it today, because I am in the process of making a new vision board. This one, I'm going to take whatever is left if I have to continue to work on it, like that whole listen more and say less. I have a tendency to talk a lot. So I'm going to continuously be working on things, but I'm also going to be painting a new vision for myself in this next part of my life, because I have a new volume of life. And I kind of need to know what to write in that volume. So I have to give myself that. I've got to create new goals. I've got to, here's my new list of goals, and where I've started to make my new vision board. So I'm technically going to finish the first goal, which is what it's like to be under 200 in my adult life. So I'm pretty close to that one. But I don't really know what I want for, whether it's my body or my health after this point. I think right now I'm just working on, building muscle. But I need to bring a visual for that, because when we don't see what we believe, we don't align with how to achieve it. And I kind of like that. When we don't see what we believe, we cannot align with what we want to achieve. I'm going to make a note for my assistant to document that quote, because I like it. And I need to be able to see it. Like, at some point, I started seeing this. This was what I used with intention for my vision. And this, ultimately, the theory of happiness exists. It's possible. You can be happy. You can come from a place where happiness seems so far off, especially in today's world. And you can find it. And a lot of it, I think, believes it's within, and happiness it's not going to look the same. We have to know how to find it and to see it in order to believe it. So that's just a little bit of my old vision board. I'll go over it, and like I said, in another live at some point. And I'm trying to think of so my new vision board, I'll just share a little bit with y'all. Here it is. I'm not the most organized person. I can organize other people's lives a lot easier than my own, but so what I recommend for anyone who is trying to do this, and sometimes I do recommend we need to start this on our own, and you don't need to tell, honestly, anyone that you're doing it. If you really need that accountability for someone to show up with you to make sure you keep going, by all means, tell them if that's what you need. But if you were anything like me, where I was fearful of being inconsistent, and I was fearful of people depending on me, and then I don't show up for myself, and then kind of it's a backwards cycle of self-blame and self-criticism, then I didn't need to tell anyone. I didn't really want people to know that I was about to try yet again to be healthy, and it may or may not work. That's a lot of pressure. I'm only speaking for myself here, but it's a lot of pressure. Hey, Booker T, we need to link up soon. We have to reconnect. Long time to see your name. So, what was I saying? Vision board. When you're starting out, if you don't have a vision board, that's fine. You don't have to create a whole project. that was a project for school, right? Like, it wasn't, you don't have to go all out, but I do encourage you to, if anything, you start writing it down. So this is my outline for my new vision board, and some of the things that are on it, I will give you all a little sneak peek. I'll give you a sneak peek. There's a magazine cover on it. Not gonna tell you which one. There is a community on it, and I also have a visual of what I want and how to depict that community. So I'll tell you about that part versus like who's in the community, because there's a big difference between me being out here and being vulnerable and me telling all my business. Okay, privacy is important. Yes, it really has. So when you go to therapy, I'm also a big advocate for therapy. I just took a shower, y'all, which is why I kind of look, and I keep picking, well, that's tape, but I shed a lot. So if you see me like picking hair off me, it's just because, yeah, shed a lot. So when you go to therapy, one of the things that as a therapist that we're trained to look at is our social networks and our social systems and our family systems. So that for me over the years, as I've built this relationship with myself, and I really feel like that network, that web of people that I'm attached to and the people that influence me, those open channels, they're very important. They're something that I'm very intentional with. Like, I don't keep, it's hard, but I also had to learn to let people go. I've had to learn to let people leave my life. So the visual on my new vision board that I'm creating is going to be a concept map, what we talk about as, in therapy, when we start to look at who are the people in our lives and who are, and what it is that they bring in terms of whether it's energy, whether it's purpose, whether it's education, like how do they serve us and how are we serving the other people. So the visual of that map, instead of it being, this is going to be my first vision board. So instead of it being an infinity symbol and it being lifelong, that wasn't supposed to happen. Instead of it being that visual, I'm going to be doing it more of a web. It's going to be like a spider web of, who I'm connected to in the world, because this is now the phase of my life. Oh, hey guys, this is weird. See, I'm trying to learn how to pay attention and talk at the same time. I've got two different cameras. Yes, thank you, a concept map. But yes, like that kind of, I want it to be on the background of a world, but then it also be kind of like, y'all ever fly? Hopefully as someone who's listening to this, if you've flown and you take the magazine that's in the back of the seat, and they have the airport maps, and then they have like the world map with all the like hubs of the plane. That's the kind of the visual when I talk about a concept map. Like, it's like that, but for people. But that's ultimately going to be the visual of my vision board. So what else is on there? So there's going to be like, my current network and what about those people in my network, what they're going to have. And then there's also going to be a new network for the people that I haven't met yet that I will be meeting. There's going to be more of a partner because, area, because if I am, I'm single, so, oh, thank you guys for liking it and loving. Yes. So I'm going to have to learn how to respond to these things because I don't know how to. Do I I don't know what I can do, y'all. That's going to be next week, that lesson that I need to learn about how to actually engage with people in the chat. So what else? So yeah, a partner area. I'm very influenced by music and getting more into art these days. So I think that, ultimately that's what, I'm kind of excited about the vision board in that regard. So, but there's going to be some, visuals for certain songs that have really influenced my life and how they're going to influence the next part of my life. And then this is one that I actually, since I'm not homeless anymore. Last year and a half of my life, I sold my house And I had joked that I was homeless because I was living with my mom and in between, a friend's house when I would come back up to Raleigh to work. And I need to actually figure out what my house is going to look like. So, got to get on Pinterest. That's the best part of a vision board, is that you can start actually looking at the things that you want in your life. The things that you may, and sometimes even to me, and as much work as I've done, they may not seem that attainable still. But that's the point of the vision board, is making sure that they stay in my line of sight, and that regardless of whether, where life brings me, that I still have a version of what I know I'm heading towards. I think that's pretty much like, yeah, those are other notes. But yeah, so kind of what I want. Oh, here's a good one. And this is one that I'll probably have to do a different talk on at some point. But the afterlife. The afterlife is going to be on my vision board, because what we want after this particular life, and since this past year and a half, I think for me, not only was it like physical, transformation, emotional, but it was also spiritual. And I never realized the power of how we have to, in the relationship that we have with death. The relationship we have with loss is a huge part of my program, but the relationship that we have with death specifically, and what comes after. For someone who, I grew up Catholic, I went to an atheist place, and then I ended up more agnostic. For someone like me, where I just kind of didn't really fit in any other kind of structure of faith, to have found a comfort in a new faith system, and to understand what afterlife means, is going to be a huge part of how I move forward. How I choose to live today is ultimately how I forgot to turn off my social media screen time. That's just what happened. How I choose to live my life today has to be in line with what I want for the time that I'm off this physical earth. So some people call that heaven, some people call that hell. I call it the afterlife. And I will tell y'all why in another, maybe next week. Actually, no, I want to do it when I have all of my tools for that talk. And one of those tools is actually home in New Hampshire. So guess I'm going to have to go get that at some point. So that is just a little bit of, this is interesting. You can scroll up. Oh, I just ended the live broadcast by accident. But I'm still on Right Size Perspective. But yeah, I was about to close up with that anyway. I think the intention that we have in life about how we live right now and where we're heading is very important. As someone who really likes to just kind of go, I've had to force myself to write things down. I've had to force myself to put a vision of my life out there for myself, and then a version of it out here for y'all, because I know, and hopefully this makes sense to someone, but I know that my life is ultimately the vision for someone else right now. Because when I started, someone's life was the vision of my life at that moment. I learned from watching a lot of other really great Instagram ladies who they were vulnerable enough to put their transformation out there, and that inspired me. And then that's what brought me to taking a look at what I already had, and then taking a look as to what I still needed and what I needed to go forward. So I hope this live has served someone in seeing, whether or not it's you start the vision board, you don't finish it. Starting is something you can always come back to finish later. I really believe in just the importance of timing. I will talk about that as another topic over the course of the next couple of weeks, as to how this transformation really only happens when it's the right time for you. There's never a right time, but you will do it when it's ready and you're ready to do it. So, and when you're ready, I'm here to help give some perspective, some guidance, and I don't give advice. I can't give advice. I cannot live your life, but I can give you perspective on how to get what you want in life. Because it's possible. But you gotta have a vision.